So your restaurant is doing really, really well. And as you look around, you think to yourself, well, how can I grow my business? Do I open up another location? Should you? How do you actually scale and remain successful in this post-COVID environment, which, as we all know, is not necessarily very stable? One of the ways that we've discovered that happens is by innovating. To find out, we've invited the president of Wow Bao Restaurants, Geoff Alexander, to join Jim and I to uncover some ideas that you might be able to implement right away, or at least to start to investigate to expand your business by embracing innovation. And Jim, I know this is kind of weird because to some, innovation's a dirty word. I mean, after all, there is tradition to consider, right? I mean, some people just have their mindset on a particular way of doing things, and sometimes they can be resistant to maybe embracing restaurant chains or co-packing. Now all of a sudden your control is gone. So what jumps to mind for you?
Well, I'm really interested to hear what Geoff has to say because he's the expert. But a conversation that I've been involved in a few times is that our industry is full of some of the most innovative and resilient people you can ever meet. But as an industry, I think sometimes we're a little bit slow to adopt new ideas and change and step outside the box. So I think Geoff's going to have some good stuff for us to talk about.
Yeah, that's why I'm so excited about this conversation. My name is Adam Lamb, and I'm the principal of Chef Life Coaching, and I'm here with my co-host Jim Taylor of Benchmark 60. And every week we're dedicated to bringing you solutions to the hospitality industry's most persistent challenges. In this episode, we're going to discuss real-world examples of what's working in the hospitality industry and give you some actionable ideas to help restaurant owners and managers not only improve their retention rates, but also grow their brand right after these messages. Welcome to Turning the Table, the most progressive weekly podcast for today's food and beverage industry, featuring staff-centric operating solutions for restaurants in the hashtag New Hospitality Culture. Join Jim Taylor of Benchmark 60 and Adam Lamb as they turn the tables on the prevailing operating assumptions of running a restaurant in favor of innovative solutions to our industry's most persistent challenges. Thanks for joining us. And now, on to the show. This episode is made possible by eVocalize. eVocalize makes complex local digital marketing push-button easy for anyone. Empower your franchises with programs that automatically optimize performance and program spending across Google, Facebook, Instagram, and TikTok, all from one easy-to-use collaborative marketing platform. To find out more, go to turningthetablepodcast.com/eVocalize. As always, we ask that you share the show with someone you care about who can find this information useful. Please leave a review on Apple Podcasts or iTunes. And if you're on Spotify, give us a star rating. Links to the shows and other things discussed always can be found in the comments and the show notes. And we'd like to welcome Geoff Alexander, President and CEO, Wow Bao, Managing Partner, Let Us Entertain You, out of Chicago, spin instructor, and top 25 casual executive in 2022-2023. One of the most influential CEOs in the country as rated by Nation's Restaurant News. Welcome, Geoff.
Geoff.
Thanks, guys. Thanks for having me.
Great to have you. I have to ask this question right out the gate. Are you still a spin instructor?
Don't I look like a spin instructor?
You do.
You picture when you see a spin instructor. Yes. I've been teaching 1 day a week minimum for the last 7 or 8 years.
Which brand do you work with?
It's a club here in Chicago called FFC, Fitness Formula Clubs. They have 8 locations, and I have one that I really teach out of, but I move around between them. I do
cool.
the high intensity workouts. I don't do the dancing and the push-ups and all that, but it's climbs and straightaways and so on. But look, before we get started, because I'm very excited for this conversation, we gotta set the table here the right way, right?
Got it.
I appreciate you calling me an expert, and I'll do my best, but that's a big thing to live up to. And the second thing is, to the audience, you should only leave a good rating and a star. Don't leave any other kind of rating or star, because my reputation here that is on the line now. Okay.
Well, we thank you for that support.
Yes,
So
I will do my best not to disappoint.
Now, Geoff, Let Us Entertain and Wow Bao primarily started in Chicago. And for those who are somehow living under a rock for the last 30 years, can you paint us a picture of not only Let Us Entertain You, but your involvement and where Wow Bao started and where it's at right now?
Sure. So Let Us Entertain You is a privately held restaurant group based in Chicago, founded in 1971 by Richard Melman. Over the last 52 years, Lettuce has created over 250 different concepts, I believe right now we have about 62 concepts in play, about 130 restaurants, I believe. We're in Chicago, Florida, Texas, Vegas, DC, and Minnesota. We've partnered with iconic brands like Joe Stone Crab out of Miami, where we run their Vegas, Chicago, and DC outposts. We partnered with John George Von Gerichten out of New York City to run their Chicago Vong location. I was part of that endeavor. And so there's been a number of different opportunities. And I've been with Lettuce since May of 93, just celebrated 30 years with them. During my tenure, thank you very much. I know I look 12, so I appreciate that you're shocked by 30 years. I've worked on a number of different brands, from high-end fine dining seafood restaurants to quick serve fast casual restaurants like Wow Bao. Wow Bao started in 2003. It actually started in 1999 as an idea of an appetizer for one of our other restaurant brands called Big Bowl, which I was involved in at the time. And in the tasting that we presented to Rich, he paused in the tasting and said, we could do a whole restaurant just selling these bao. Bao is a soft, sweet dough with meat and vegetables inside, just by steam. You don't need any HVAC to run it. And in 2003, we had an opportunity to open 384 square feet inside Chicago's iconic water tower place. That was the Golden Goose, which is celebrating 20 years in this coming August. And over those 20 years, I took it over in 2009, 6 years into it, and we've grown the concept from just brick and mortar to being in college campuses, sports stadiums, airports, music festivals, virtual restaurants, grocery stores, hot food vending machines, Web3. So a lot of different ways we've grown the brand.
That's very, 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 very impressive. And to kind of reference our opening question, for most restaurant operators, I think when they talk about expanding their brand, building their business, becoming more successful, they might think that their only play is to open another brick and mortar location. And came across Kyle and Sarah's video of you, I think at the National Restaurant Association, where you're bragging, kind of showing off all the different stuff, which we have a link in the show notes because it's a fascinating, quick 2-minute video. But there are other ways in which to grow the brand, is there not? And you had a couple ideas prior to the show about, well, wait a second, let's back up here and make sure that we've got some foundational information set first. So
yeah, thank you, and I'll explain that. And I think the biggest takeaway that I'll leave the listeners with, and we'll revisit it throughout the show, is it's not one person. I am honored and thrilled to be the face of the brand, to be here and talking with you and sharing the story. But the success that Wow Bao has is not because of what I've done. It is because of what the team has put together. And as the leader of that brand, you have two jobs. You have to get the right people and put them in the right place. And then you have to inspire them, educate them, motivate them, and let them do their jobs. My job is, hey, I want to go down this road. Open the door, let them go, and then they might take you off road. But you have to keep the focus on course, but let it happen. So how did Wow Bao grow and do all these different things? Here is the secret to our success: is we have grown up with no money. And when you have no money, that's when you find the best ideas, and that's where you are willing to try basically anything in order to achieve success. And what do I mean by it? We didn't have money. The way Lettuce Entertain You works as a privately held restaurant group, there's only so much money every year. And we build very large restaurants that do extremely high volume. That's what we're good at. That's what we understand. So when I took the brand, started in 2003 with one store. It opened 2 more locations in 2007. So for 4 years, we ran one location, 384 square feet. When I took it over in 2009, we opened up our 4th location in 2011 and our 5th location 2014. So in the course of 11 years, we got 5 locations. And when you don't have access to capital, when you don't have means to grow a team, open more stores, it becomes the responsibility of that leader to find ways to evolve and innovate. And that's what we've done a lot of. For instance, in 2010, we had self-ordering kiosks. Now, people are sort of like, big deal, but in 2010, you had self-ordering kiosks in airports, movie theaters, and banks. Nobody was using them in restaurants.
Yeah, not for food.
In 2010, we had mobile ordering on your desktop computer. And I know the generation is watching this is like big deal. We all have the desktop ordering. Nobody had it in 2010. We had an app in 2010. When we had an app in 2010, there were 300,000 apps in the App Store. So we always embraced technology. We got heavily involved in social media in 2009 to get the brand name out there. We had a food truck driving around the city selling food wherever we could and doing music festivals and giveaways and whatever we could to get the food into people's hands. It was all about expanding the brand name. We became the first brand in Lettuce Entertainment's history to partner with an airport. We became the first brand in Lettuce Entertainment's history to open up on a college campus. We started partnering with sports stadiums. All of these were license deals where we were just selling product out there and training people how to serve our food, but everyone else was running it. So it was a way for us to expand who we were and what we were doing at really asset light because we had no access to capital.
So did you focus predominantly in that early, in terms of getting the brand going? Was the focus mainly on just Chicago in general, or did you go to any other cities? Because we see restaurant groups all the time that go, hey, I've got one really good concept in this city. I'm going to open another one, 200 miles away kind of thing in the next town.
Yeah, it was funny because I grew up in New York City, moved to Chicago after college. And for college, I went to the University of Wisconsin-Madison. So that's an hour and a half, 2 hours north of Chicago.
Mm-hmm.
When I got involved with Wow Bao, all I thought was we need to have one of these in the University of Wisconsin-Madison. I knew it would do great because I went to school there.
Yeah.
I chased the CEO of Lettuce for 3 years. I found 3 locations in Madison. Let's do it. He finally looked at me and said, this is a pipe dream for you. You're going to go open one store in Madison, Wisconsin. And what are you going to do when the manager calls in sick? Right. Are you going to get in your car and drive up there? Because a small store like that isn't going to have 4 managers. You're not going to have all these salary people because you can't afford it. And that sort of opened my ideas like, okay, you have to either carpet bomb a city with a small concept. That's expensive. Mm-hmm. Or you have to find other people to run it for you. And that's when we started doing these license deals with the sports stadiums, the college campuses, and the airports. So my focus for the brand was teaching people what Bao is and getting the food into people's hands so that they would enjoy it. I remember in 2015, so we have a co-packer that makes our product, which was good that we had it back in 2015 for 2 reasons. One, the volume where we are now, we would never be able to make it ourselves. Of course. And 2, we had supply chain built out. And when the pandemic came, we had no disruption whatsoever. But I would take our product and I would knock on my local grocery store, literally a block from our house, say, will you sell the product in the grocery store? Then I went out to the suburbs. My wife grew up in the suburbs of Chicago, and I went to her local grocery store where she grew up. It was like my mother-in-law would fawn over me if I could put this on the shelf here so all of her friends see it. Right. And by doing that, eventually me knocking on grocery stores got us to the point where a distributor noticed us, called us up, started carrying our product and getting us into more grocery stores. And today, a year ago today, we were at 350 grocery stores. Today, at this moment, we're in about 2,000. And in about 8 weeks, we're going to be in 5,000 grocery stores. And it's all just by hitting that pavement and working hard to get to an end result.
I think it's really, really interesting. And I got to give you some credit here, Geoff. Like, you've received some incredible accolades as a leader in the industry, right? I mean, most influential and some of that kind of stuff, right? And here you are talking about knocking on doors at a grocery store to say, will you sell my product? I think that's just very cool to hear, actually. I think that's, I gotta high five you for that.
I appreciate that, but no one wakes up one day and they're the most influential in anything, right?
True. It's true.
No, the blood, sweat, and tears that we all put into doing anything. Look, you didn't wake up one day and become a podcast person and doing this and having all of your listeners, right? Mm-hmm. There's so much of your story that your listeners don't know. We could probably do a whole show on each of you, how you got to be and who you are to do this. We all have that story. And I think that story is what resonates with the listener. And when you said, hey, I literally, me, Geoff Alexander, I remember we used to go to, if a new nightclub opened up in Chicago, right? Or a new store opened up down the block, like a clothing store. Mm-hmm. Think about it. If a Lululemon, which I use that only because I think we all know what Lululemon is, or Apple.
Yeah. And it's from Vancouver.
Sure. Right? and it's Christmas time and you know they're going to be swamped, it's not very hard for you to make food for 40 people and walk it over there and feed the staff because you know they're not getting a break during lunchtime to eat because they're so busy. Now what you did is those 40 people will probably eat at your restaurant tomorrow. And when the shopper's like, where should I eat in the neighborhood? They're like, oh, there's a great restaurant nearby. Nobody has the bandwidth for the incredible idea, right? The moonshot takes a freaking village to achieve.
Yeah.
It's the little tiny things that we could all do every single day that's what grows your business.
Amazing.
It reminds me of, I've published a couple books, almost always self-publishing, but the myth was, you need to go to a big publisher in order to get a book deal. And for a long time before the advent of a lot of stuff in technology, that was the way it was going. Now, some authors prefer self-publishing. And for a publisher, it makes sense to find somebody who's already self-published because there's already built-in audience, right?
Yep.
The proof of concept already exists. And it seems to me that, you and the others from this team, as they're going around and bootstrapping and looking for opportunities to expand brand awareness, is basically building community one bite at a time.
That is right there on the nose, right? That is what it is. It is, there's a story that in Let Us Entertain You that the very first year that Wow Bao opened in 2003, nobody had ever heard of it, right? Had heard of Bao. And supposedly Richard Melman gave away 50,000 Bao year one. Don't know if it's true or false. But fast forward to 2011, Lollapalooza is a music festival here in Chicago. It's 100,000 people a day, 3-day event in Grant Park. It's now up to 4 days. We did it. We had a booth. We've had a booth every year since. But that first year, we did incredible business. And everyone's like, what is this? How do you eat this? I don't know what this is. Year two, everyone said, I'm so glad you're back. You were my favorite thing at the festival the year before. And the restaurant business is the food business and the hospitality business. Okay. The food business means you got to get your food to people because if they eat it, they'll buy it. You're in the iPhone business, you get someone to use the iPhone, they're going to go buy the iPhone. We have to be proud of our food in the restaurant industry and give that food to people. Then you have the hospitality side. And the hospitality side is when you are going and finding ways to get the food into people's hands and listening to the feedback they're giving you and being open to that feedback. And that's how you evolve and innovate. We had an idea in 2017, private equity got involved to help fund the growth of Wow Bao. And in fall of 2019, we had an internal meeting about how do we want to continue to grow the brand? What's next? And in that conversation, it was like, well, our private equity has a network of restaurants that they work with and people they know. And Lettuce has a network of restaurants within its company and who they know. And the idea we threw out was, why don't we just sell our food to those other restaurants for them to serve on third-party delivery out their back door? Why are we like trying to find business? We have all these partners.
Of course.
It was an aha moment. So we started building out supply chain further. We started talking to third-party delivery operators. We built training materials, built marketing materials. And I started talking to restaurant CEOs in Let Us Entertain You and out. And every single person said, you're nuts. Why would I ever sell your product? Why would I do this? This is crazy. And I had one guy said to me, tell me more, I'm interested. And we launched with one location in January 2020. And then boom, the world shut down. And you had no diner, delivery only. And in the following 36 months, we've done 700 locations between the US and Canada of people selling our food out the door, third-party delivery. Now, we got to a scale where we were able to bring somebody on the team to own that part of our business. That means I now can take one of my eyes off that business and figure out what's next. That's when we started working with the CPG to grow that. And I said in the last year, we've grown from 350 to 2,000, about to go to 5,000. Got it go into a place, brought somebody on the team. Now they're taking that part of the business and they're running that. So now I wish I had a third eye, the second eye off that business. And now it's okay, what's next for Wow Bao? And now I'm having conversations with hotel groups, cruise lines, entertainment facilities, about serving Wow Bao in there, and we'll scale that up. And that's what you need. You have to keep your eye on those previous ideas and those other ways of innovation. And you have to have great people that you'll trust that can maintain it, and you educate them and learn from their ideas about how to keep evolving those opportunities.
Can we, what all of this stuff that you're talking about, I think is relevant, whether you're a rapid growth company, whether you're a one-off, like it sounds like more of obviously an attitude than anything else. But can we go back to this "we have no money" spot that you were talking about?
I hate those days.
Well, and the only reason, sorry to bring you some, hopefully there's no PTSD there or anything or flashbacks, but the thing that's sticking with me about that you said that is that's where 95% of the restaurant industry is at. We don't have money to go and hire a chief innovation officer or spend a bunch of money on R&D and all this kind of stuff. So I think there's really powerful message that you've been talking about in terms of things like this attitude around we have no money. Let's think about ways that we can be creative and grow the business.
Well, and let's not forget for a moment that it wasn't necessarily a pandemic, but in 2007 with the housing crash, the first thing that happened was the credit market seized up. And for people who were growth minded, there was no chance. As a matter of fact, I was in a startup and we were going to do these really beautiful movie theaters from coast to coast. And they came to me and said, well, Adam, we can't open up another one. So there's no point in having a corporate chef with one facility. So, we're going to have to let you go. So these cycles happen to come again and again and again. So even if you have money, there's probably going to be a point where everybody needs to tighten their shoelaces.
Yeah.
So,
yeah. And I tease where I say, PTSD to go back there. I still today run Wow Bao like we don't have any money. I think that's what sets us apart, right? It's easy to spend money. It's very easy to spend money. The thing that you have to do is you have to be strategic about where you're spending the money. And I said it earlier, we're in the food and hospitality business. The best money you can spend is put your food in people's hands. That is the greatest thing that you can do. I remember, I keep saying I remember. I mean, I'm getting that old here now, right? But in 2009, I was sitting at home and my wife was telling me about this new thing called Twitter. Now they're calling it X, right? And Threads, right? But okay, 2009, this new thing came out called Twitter, and I had no idea what that was or how it worked. We would send out tweets and no one cared, no one responded. But I remember it was like 9 o'clock at night and I'm in bed. Sorry, again, I'm an old man, but I'm scrolling.
Well, you're getting up to do spin classes, for crying out loud.
Right. Thank you. That's why I was tired. But I remember seeing this tweet was going through about this girl who's saying that she's at Wow Bao eating soup, making a mess, and she hoped no one sees. And so I called the restaurant. We had 3 locations at the time. One was in a mall with no seating. I wasn't that one. One was in the business district of Chicago, which is closed, breakfast and lunch only. Wasn't that one. So I knew where it was. Called the manager. I said, find this person and deliver them dessert, right? Our chocolate bao on us and say, you look great. Keep enjoying your food. And I kept hitting refresh, right? Refresh. And then the tweets started coming in. And I saw the immediate power of both social media and hospitality. And then we went all in. And when I say we, I mean, there were 3 of us, I think, on our corporate team at Wow Bao back in the day, right? It was me, an operations person, and I had this like all-around catch-all guy. Everybody needs an all-around catch guy. Everyone needs. You need this person who is just bought into your culture, bought into the brand, and just could do whatever.
He'll do anything. Yeah.
The guy that I had on my team, when we got involved with grocery, he was every Sunday night and Monday night at a grocery store doing sampling. When we were going, and I said we were sending food to Apple and Lululemon, he was the guy delivering it, right? I mean, this was my guy. I'm like, you got to go do this. Here's where we're going next and what we're doing. And we launched the food truck. So in Chicago, you're not allowed to cook food on a truck. This is back in 2010.
Okay.
And when I first took over Wow Bao, we had 3 locations. One location made all the sauces and stuff, and we commissaried to the other 2. Right. And my chef partner at the time was going on vacation. And I said, well, how are we going to get the food from point A to point B and C if you're on vacation. He goes, use your car. No, I'm not using my car. That's not going to happen. So we bought a van. Now we have this white panel van, right, that sat in a garage for 23 hours a day. And I said, why don't we put a hot box on it? We'll fill it with food, throw it in the hot box, drive to the University of Chicago, drive to DePaul, drive to University of Illinois, Chicago, and sell food out of the back of the van. And all of a sudden that launched another marketing tool because we shrink wrapped the van. And now you had a mobile billboard, right? You had a Twitter feed associated with it. You had food getting to people's hands. And now how else can you use that van, right? We could park it somewhere on the street. We could pull up to a street festival. It's just, you have to look at what you have available to you now. And
because
how to utilize it. Sorry, go ahead.
No. I mean, not everybody has, $40,000 to $80,000 to drop on a fully kitted food truck. I mean, here in Asheville, there's
80. It's like 225 grand.
Yeah,
I'm talking about secondhand.
Third hand.
Here in Asheville, it's like the capital of blended service. So very often there's facilities who are building kind of like outdoor pavilions with cattle fences around so that the dogs can come, and in the back of the property sits a food truck. And so I find that there's a lot of ingenuity going on here in the city insofar as like, I don't have staff to wait on the tables. Okay, so let's do counter service and give everybody like little signs or something. But just two observations. Number one, because I had to admit to Geoff that I actually tried to apply to Let Us Entertain You several times and got the sweet kiss off, but that's beside the point. But the one reason why I wanted to work with them is because back in the day when I was working in Chicago, there was no other company that was taking chefs and making them partners, either within a particular brand or a particular area. And there's nothing, like you said, that all around guy that, would, go to the wall for Wow Bao. I mean, that's because of the respect and the admiration that was shown to these folks who perhaps in another organization would never get that chance. And it's served, obviously, Let Us Entertain You very, very well, and also Wow Bao. And then the other thing that came to mind as you were talking about Lollapalooza is back in the day when Jane Byrne was mayor, she started Chicago Fest in Grant Park every year. And I remember working at Four Farthings Tavern and Grill on Lincoln Avenue with Conrad Yoakum, who's an incredible chef. And I would hold down the kitchen and do all the prep, and he would go and set up tables and just keep pounding the food out. And what a wonderful way to get the message out that, like you said, it's all hospitality and like, I want to get this in your mouth right now, and I want your feedback, so I'll shut up while you're eating.
Yeah. And look, what's very important. So any of these things you do the food truck, you do the food at the festival, you do delivery. These are businesses. And what happens a lot is it's an idea because I just want to do something, right? You're throwing crap against a wall and hope it sticks. If it doesn't stick, it stinks. So I wasn't wrong where I said that. But look, what's important is it has to be treated like a business. And Wow Bao was the third restaurant in Chicago to partner with Uber Eats when it launched in Chicago. Like, we got in very early in delivery. And I remember back in like 1999, in that realm, when delivery was becoming something, but you would get faxes into the kitchen, and you had this long fax, and you had to go to the POS and ring it up, and every single cook in the kitchen hated doing delivery.
Yeah.
Every manager and expediter hated doing delivery. And if you really think about it, what was the difference of serving table 22, 2 entrees, and making 2 entrees for delivery? The only difference was you put in a to-go box on your line, and you didn't put it in a plate window. If you really think about it from the cook standpoint, that was the only difference. But the attitude of the front of the house, whether it was the bartender who had to take the order, the manager who had to put it in the machine, the expediter who had to get the to-go box, was so negative that the cook made it negative that they had to. Okay. For those of us who saw the benefit of carryout and the benefit of delivery, we made it a business. We said, we're going to do it, and we're going to do it right. And we're going to treat that customer at home or person picking it up and taking it home as good as the person who's dining in the restaurant, because we can't fix it if there's a problem.
Right.
Can't get them more. So if you turn on delivery, if you're not doing delivery right now, you can't just say, I want to make more money and I'm just going to throw food out the door. It's got to be a business that you care about. If you're going to turn on carry out because you don't do carry out, and I know this sounds stupid. Everyone does carry out, everyone does delivery. But 3 years ago, pre-pandemic, not everybody did it.
No.
Right? A lot of high ends wouldn't even think about having their food leave the house, restaurant,
Yeah.
right? And you can now just turn it on, but it's got to be a business. You want to go and knock on the local grocery store to start selling your product. It has to be a business. You got to take their phone call. You got to check in with them. You got to follow up with them, right? Everything that you're going to do, if you want to go outside your four walls, has to be a business. Because inside your four walls, if you read a new special tomorrow on your menu, you're going to make sure everyone knows how to cook it. You're going to make sure every employee knows how to sell it. You're going to follow up on your P mix and your P&L tomorrow, and your, on the POS, see how many you sold, check the quality of it, and you're going to taste it every day with the staff. Like, you are going to put all in on that one dish because you're running a special. That same passion, enthusiasm, education, inspiration, motivation has to go into every aspect if you want to try something new. When we turned on self-ordering kiosks in 2010, I'll never forget this. We put 2 machines out, and the installer's lying on the ground, right? And he's like tinkering with the wires. And some lady walked up and started using the machine. And she was frustrated it wasn't working, right? She's like, why isn't this? It wasn't on. The guy's installing it, right? And I was like, okay, well, we obviously made the right call by doing this. But it wasn't also, if you build it, they will come. We had to watch how people interacted with the machine. It was the menu flowing in the right order. And, when you updated here, did it update there? And are we selling what we want to sell? Is the picture right? It wasn't just like, okay, flick the switch and move on to the next project.
Mm-hmm. Well, all of this stuff that you're talking about, there's a hospitality connection with all of it. Just taking care of the customer.
Well, look, I say this a lot. Pre-pandemic, we were in the hospitality business. Coming out of the pandemic, we're in the food business. And what I noticed is we're all getting hit with high labor, and we're all getting hit with high food cost, and we're all getting hit with high rent and high. And what we're doing is we're passing on all these costs to the consumer, right? A lot of restaurants have added a surcharge. We've raised our prices, third-party delivery, charges the consumer these things. We need to get back to the hospitality business because our hospitality is not equating to the prices we're charging. Yeah. There used to be managers on the floor that walked around and talked to the tables and made sure everything was right. Now we're trying to save payroll so the managers work at the front door. And then the manager needs to do a comp or go in the kitchen. Now there's nobody at the front door and the guest is standing there. I mean, we've missed and forgotten about hospitality. Yeah. And when you mold hospitality into every being, every part of your business, that's when the magic happens, because that's what sets you and your team and your restaurant apart differently than everybody else.
Adam, weren't you and I just talking about this a couple of weeks ago about how technology is just taking on it has such a big presence in our industry now. I think there's a lot of operators that are trying to figure out exactly what the right fit is depending on the platform. But we were talking about not losing the human element in the hospitality side of things.
Yep. Yeah, I'm sorry. If technology is an enhancement to the guest and your employee, it's the right technology. Absolutely. If it only enhances one of those two, you got to figure out the other piece, because it can't be a hindrance or an impediment to both. It has to help your employee. It has to help the guest.
So, Geoff, I want to go back to something you were talking about. When you're flipping on carry out, you're flipping on to go, you're going to fill the van with, already hot prepared food and take it down to the university or work with a co-packer. The other thing is brand awareness, and to make sure that the brand doesn't get diluted, so that there's this idea of like, okay, if you're going to choose an initiative, then you need to make sure that there's someone on there that's on it and checking it all the time, so that you can pivot and focus on something else. But the other part of it is, like, if there's anybody out there who's considering any of these objectives, you want to make sure that you're branded everything, because there's nothing better than opening up a refrigerator 2 days later and seeing a branded to-go box, whether that's a sticker that says Wow Bao or, specially designed containers, to be able to carry that experience 2-3 more days and have them reinforced in your mind. Like, God, that was such a great experience. I can't wait to go back there.
Yeah, look, I think that's very important. And we have a saying, we have signs in our offices and in our stores. And we say everything we do is marketing. Everything you do is marketing. How I'm presenting myself on this interview right now, I'm marketing myself, my restaurant, my people, my brand. Every interaction you have, every piece of paper, taste of food, the setting of the restaurant, the music level, every single piece that you touch, that you give to somebody to receive, is marketing. And while I agree with you about the branding is so important, when they open up that refrigerator in 3 days and see it, I'll be honest with you. We have 2 pieces of to-go packaging. One is fully branded, one has 0 branding on it. And the reason for that is we want the best packaging for our food. Now, could I put a sticker on the non-branded packaging? 100% I could. Is everyone going to make that sticker absolutely perfect, or is the sticker going to be crooked? It would be, smushed. And I mean, there's so many things. I agree with you. And that packaging that's branded does more for the office worker who opens up the communal refrigerator and sees someone else's lunch and they see the name. The person who owns that food in their own refrigerator knows how good the food is and where it comes from. So I think everything costs money. Everything's important. What we did during the pandemic was, I remember on every bag that left the restaurant, we hand wrote a note, right?
Perfect.
Because humans are social creatures, right? We commiserate around food. We celebrate with food. We talk about food. Like, food is part of everything we do. And during the pandemic, where you could not see another person except online, we wanted to say, keep smiling, have a nice day, thinking about you, thank you, whatever it may be, a little message put out there. So if you don't have branded packaging and it's just a clear plastic container, take that Sharpie that's in the kitchen that every one of your cooks has in their sleeve pocket and write, thank you from Wow Bao. Even if
amazing
you're
advice.
a pizza place, write, thank you from Wow Bao.
Well, because you might be selling Wow Bao out the back door, like you said, right?
Or just to help me out.
Jeff, I think that's a perfect place to leave it. This has been incredibly informative, and I've had a great time. Jim, I know that, what are the couple things that you're taking away from Jim?
Well, there's a few. But I mean, your message about act like you've got no money kind of just really resonates. I mean, from thinking about when I was still in restaurant operations to what I do every day now, I mean, that's still, that applies to every business, right? I think so. That one is a big, strong takeaway. Funny enough, the restaurant group that I was working with during the pandemic, I went from wearing a suit every day to packing takeout, like a lot of people did. And I was the one writing on the brown paper bag, thank you for, I did some of that stuff. So that really brought back a good memory for me. And so that's another one, I think, just to say thank you to the customer. And just the message about hospitality. I think what you said about we're in the food business now is so true, right? I mean, and just hospitality, we can't lose the human element and the thank you element of restaurants. So many good takeaways, Geoff. I really appreciate you taking the time.
I appreciate you paying attention.
I wrote these notes down. No, it's good to listen. I mean, you've got lots of really good things to say. So, you're welcome to join us anytime you want. We'd love to have you back again.
Please, if you would, Jeff. And yeah, thanks for the reminder that hospitality equals humanity. And the minute we forget that, we run the risk of probably an overdependence on stuff like technology, thinking that it's going to replace us. And really, I strongly believe that what we do is a great excuse for folks to come around a table and be in relationship with one another. So there's a little bit of sanctity for people to actually sit down and share food. And they might not have seen each other for months or years, especially with what's happened over the last 3 years. So I congratulate you for not only the growth, but also the diversification and the verticals that you guys are bringing to bear, because Wow Bao is going to be a brand that not a lot of people are going to be able to ignore. So thank you very much.
I appreciate it. Thanks, guys.
Thanks, Jeff.
Thank you. Thanks, everybody, for joining us for another episode of Turning the Table, and we will see you next week. Thanks for joining us on this episode of Turning the Table with me, Adam Lamb, and Jim Taylor. We're on a mission to change the food and beverage industry for the better by focusing on staff mental health, physical and emotional well-being, by proactively measuring and managing staff workloads. Join other hospitality professionals co-creating the hashtag New Hospitality Culture by subscribing to our weekly newsletter at www.turningthetablepodcast.com/news. In every edition, you'll find innovative solutions ready to test and validate in your operation this weekend. Plus, listen to exclusive bonus content just for you. Connect with us on LinkedIn, Facebook, and Instagram at Turning the Table Podcast. If you found value in this episode, please consider leaving us a review on Apple Podcasts or on Spotify. Give us a star rating. It helps other hospitality professionals just like you find the show. Or better yet, grab the show link and share it with a friend or colleague who you want to see succeed. Thanks for stepping in and speaking out for an industry, craft, and fraternity that serves us all. Remember, retention is the new cool, y'all. This podcast was written, directed, and produced by me, Adam Lamb, and Jim Taylor. Turning the Table is a production of Realignment Media.